Hi guys, welcome to today's video. Hope you're all doing well. My name is Annie and today we will be ranking all the different performances from Kingdom, a legendary war episode 4, 5 and talk a little bit about episode 6, which was a special episode. I took some notes, so let's talk about it. Something that I actually forgot to explain is the entire purpose of this new round. So this round is called Reborn, and for it the groups have decided which group they want to do a song of. So for example, BTOB, or actually Stray Kids, chose BTOB, and so they had to do a song from the other group. The same goes for the Boyz and SF9, as well as iKON and Ateez. Very interesting and promising covers that we are about to cover right now.
Back door. Let's go!
At number 6, we have BTOB with Backdoor. I did really enjoy this performance, and I must admit, when I saw that they had to exchange songs, BTOB and Stray Kids, I was a little bit worried for BTOB because I didn't know how they would be able to perform Stray Kids songs, which tend to be very intense, very like boff in terms of the performance and the dance side of it. But they did really impress me with this one, as I decided to go with a more literal concept. iKON starting the performance backstage and warming up, doing the beautiful ad-libs, and I was like, oh, singing live, handheld mics. Of course, here we have it. It's so freaking cool. And he starts, and as they start the show, he knocks on the back door and they really utilize it really literally. And so then they go for Changsub, and the way he starts the song with the electric guitar, we have like a rock version sort of. Although I was scared at first for this cover, I realized, well, we're talking about BTOB. Of course, they will find a way to pull it off and do a great job, and they delivered. Then from Changsub, we go to Minhyuk, and the change in the atmosphere at that point was so freaking cool. And so it added more dynamics to a track that started out very playful, like pop rock, and then pop, the sort of mature, sexier vibe with Minhyuk, and his rap verse was really cool. Then from Minhyuk we go back to Eunkwon, and he sounds so freaking good. He is such a great vocalist, especially as Backdoor has some high notes that are really hard to pull off. Changsub did say the same thing during the episode, that he was really scared about those high notes. And then Peunyeol's rap verse was really cool, and I really enjoyed seeing during the episode how he was talking about the writing process for his rap verse and how he wanted to be playful and be like not really PG-13, and that I enjoyed a whole lot, especially as he adds a little bit more of choreo, and he plays a little bit with the staff that is just moving around as he's rapping, because at some points the transitions between one set to the other were a little bit long, so it helped that during their own sets it had so much going on, with even like the other backup dancers just moving around whilst they are performing. Then they all come to the center and then go on stage. This time we're no longer backstage, and I freaking love that section of the track, of the performance. It was really hyper. They did a bit of the performance of the dance of Backdoor, originally by Stray Kids, and I just loved that section. I hoped that that section was a little bit longer compared to the previous part, which was really cool with all the transitions, but like if I had to say, it would be like 30%, 70% on stage, because they just killed it. And you might think that because they are such great vocalists, when it comes to the dancing part, it won't be as great, but they delivered. And then of course we have Peunyeol just throwing a water bottle to the camera, then having Minhyuk just tearing his shirt, and it's like an explosion, like the climax of the performance, with Eunkwon doing the ad-libs and just killing it, honestly. Overall, it is a really enjoyable performance by BTOB, but there are some other performances that did blow me away a little bit more, just ever so slightly, that I decided to put BTOB last place. It really hurts me to do so. Number 5, we have the Boyz with The Red Wedding, which is a performance of O Sole Mio by SF9. And it really hurts me to put them at 5th place as well, because their performance was so freaking good. And I feel like I am a broken record, but it's not the case at all. I truly really enjoyed it, and it wasn't as impressive as some of the previous performances of the Boyz, but still was so freaking creative. Right from the title alone, I was impressed by it, because it was sort of a continuation of their like Game of Thrones inspired performances. So it really felt like both performances were connected in some way, shape or form, and that I appreciated a whole lot. So the performance starts out with Cheon and another female dancer inside a cage, and they start dancing, and they are actually dancing the tango, and it looked so freaking good. And so we actually have an arrangement of the track O Sole Mio with a tango feeling to it, style, and I just then and there found it to be so freaking impressive of them to tackle the tango concept. Once they finish, they move on to actually the stage, the audience, as it really felt like they were like a bunch of people watching them perform inside this cage, like two lovebirds stuck as like the product of the admiration of a public that doesn't want them to escape this cage. It really felt very theatrical, very dramatic, and I freaking love it, and it went so well with the arrangement. When they dance all together, the members of the Boyz looked so freaking good. Their moves are really sharp, really cutting, so precise. There was this one member that I almost fell, but he did pull it off so freaking well, because I did watch the performance countless times in order to make this video, so I actually noticed that he almost fell. But if you just watch it once, he did it so effortlessly, like almost falling and then going back, so professional. I loved it. And then Suo's rap was so freaking cool as well, because his rap rhythm, it wasn't as clean cut or as on beat as some other rap verses can be, so it felt a little bit distorted, as well as he was sort of telling this story and it wasn't as fast as what he tends to do. Actually, at some point of the performance, Junyeon goes back to the cage and has another tango dance break with the female dancer, and it was so freaking nice. And one thing that I freaking love, a small detail, was the fact that when the dancer was going above on that elastic thing, the arrangement of the track was actually the soundtrack, the OST, the opening of Game of Thrones, and I freaking love those details like that. And afterwards they all come together, dancing together once more, and there's this one member that goes to the center and his hand just goes in flames like that, and it was supposed to set fire to the other thing that he was holding, but unfortunately it didn't catch up. Afterwards he was so frustrated about it, but when you watch the performance, if you did not know that it was supposed to happen, that in particular, you don't care. It looks so freaking good. But then when you go back to the main stage, it was really cool because they created a sort of 2-level infrastructure, or like to create this very dramatic, epic set, but it still left me not as wowed as some of their previous performances. They were singing live, they had beautiful high notes. The ending was a little bit okay, like them throwing an arrow to the sun. I don't know exactly what is the meaning behind it, or if they're like destroying the sun, because Is it because perhaps they cannot go outside because of it, and then it turns to the moon? Is it like a prequel to the previous performance as well, as they destroy the sun, and so now they are stuck in the night, and so that was why they had all the snow and the White Walkers? Could be a possibility. Then at number 4 we have Stray Kids with I'll Be Your Man. And holy shit, I was so excited for this one because I'll Be Your Man is one of my favorite tracks from BTOB, and it is a notorious track for being so freaking hard. And so when I saw that Stray Kids wanted to do it for the performance, I was like, holy shit, how can they pull it off? And then I watched the performance and holy shit. So Seungmin actually starts the performance and his vocals are on point. I was just like, oh my god, this is going to be a very, very emotional performance, as the song originally is already very, very emotional. Then we move on to Han, and holy shit, I was surprised. He pulls off those high notes like no other, and it seems so effortless as well. And of course, they were all singing live, and they do so for the entire performance. Then we move on to Chanbin, and his rap verse for this one was so rough, so hard-hitting. His vocals were extremely raspy, and it was almost like rapping, shouting, and growling a little bit. And it was so freaking intense, and it felt really, truly that he was in pain. It had this entire storyline with like his younger version, I assume, and how you can sort of want to protect it. I don't know for sure, because as the performance unfolds, there's a lot of layers to it that I'm not really sure that I completely fully understand the overall concept. After Chanbin's very emotional rap verse, we are then followed by Ian, and his vocals, he was really, really nervous about this performance and was really scared about not reaching those high notes or having his voice cracked, which eventually happened in the very last part of the track. And afterwards, after the performance, he was really, really sad about it and actually started crying. And I'm like, oh, it's so sad that they get so frustrated, so hurt by the fact that they had their voices crack a little bit at the very end of the track, and thinking that because it wasn't like 100% perfect, it's the end of the world. It's not. As a part of like the audience, I can fully say in the name of everyone that it doesn't matter at all. You are not a bad vocalist because you have your voice cracked. It's normal to have your voice crack when you're doing such beautiful high notes, and I think it makes it even more emotional to have your voice crack in those moments in particular. Felix part with the rap sort of mini verse was so cool because they overly distorted his vocals very low. It was so freaking nice because it added such a dramatic effect to the performance. Then followed by Han in rap mode, super, super fast. You're like, oh my god, this man can do it all. Like rapping, singing, and dancing like no other. It's so freaking cool. He's becoming one of my favorite members from Stray Kids. He's so freaking talented and conveys so much emotion. The same goes for Chanbin. He's just so freaking good. Then actually both of them are in this sort of set which feels very dramatic, and it feels like they're about to do some sort of cult thing. I don't know how to explain it, because this part I was a little bit iffy about, because actually Chanbin is holding a knife that is the object common to all the performances so far, and Han takes it to his hand and just cuts his hand, and there's actually the devil that wakes up with Felix in the middle of it all. You're just like, oh my god, what is going on? But once he sort of wakes up from it, everything turns from white to red, and you're like, okay, possession, the devil woke up. They destroy the entire set, And it just really looks so freaking cool, especially then with like the entire thing with the heart. I was like, I don't get it. But the purpose of it all is that they really wanted to take that heart back to the statue that is like the kid with his hand, who I think is the same kid from the very beginning that has disappeared, and they really want to like revive him. So they made a pact with the devil. Perhaps I'll be your man, I'll be the one to save you. The climax of it, in which you have Chanbin rapping and Han and Subin, I think, both of them doing the super high note, and it was so freaking intense. So overall, I did really enjoy this performance by Stray Kids. It was really emotional. I really loved the storyline and the darker concepts that they showed, as it is a little bit different from all the other performances that they've done so far. So it was really cool that they were able to show a new side of them. Then at number 3 we have SF9 with the Stiller the Scene, and they are doing actually the Stiller from the Boyz. And this performance in particular did really surprise me. I was not expecting it at all. As I was watching the episode and seeing how they developed or how they decided to build this performance in particular, I was really curious about it, about the end result, because they decided not only to focus on the arrangement and the song and everything, but also in their acting, as most of the members of SF9 are already actors. So it was just so freaking cool that they decided to mix both, and with it they decided to have a much concept heavy performance, and I freaking loved it. They decided to go with a monster heist concept, and they really utilized the space well. It was a very immersive performance right away, very captivating. They start out the performance with like a gang fight, and right away you feel like you started the performance in the midst of like an ongoing storyline, which I find to be so freaking cool when done well. In this case they did it so freaking well. There's actually a bunch of fight scenes all throughout the I was going to say MV, but no, the performance, and they all looked so freaking good. They actually were training for all those fight scenes, and there are some moves in particular that look so freaking complicated, and they pull it off so freaking well. After that fight scene, we follow the first member as he enters this sort of office, very luxurious office, and then we have Daewon, who is actually in the most recent K-drama that I started watching called Do My Your Service. If you watch it, can you tell me in the comments down below what do you think about it, because I freaking am obsessed about that drama. He kills the previous boss and Ruan takes his place, and you're like, holy shit, what is going on? There's a bunch of killing already. Fighting, killing. It's a really violent performance, but I actually appreciate it. So Ron takes his place, and then he takes the suitcase, in which they have something very special as they fight over it throughout the entire performance. The transitions are really cool as we move on from that office to like the main stage, in which all the members regroup and then dance together to the Stiller, and the chorus is so freaking good, so like wow, sexy, as well as they have like this very dirty look. Then there's this other member, I think he's called Chuan, and he starts having a POV fight with the camera, and we are actually the fighter, and that was so freaking cool. There's a bunch of treason, people getting killed, just fighting, and all looks so freaking elegant. Inside was definitely the one member that surprised me the most, not only during the performance but also during the episode, by how he was so invested in making this performance, how great it ended up being. And his high note, oh my god, I was not at all expecting it, especially because when you compare this performance to the previous ones, it is actually the first time that you can hear the members singing so clearly. So I was really impressed by it. The other rap verses were really cool, especially by this one member called Yui. He sounded so freaking good, and he has this very chill way of rapping that I appreciate a whole lot. The rest of the performance, and even the performance overall, was really busy. There were a lot of things going on, from the transitions, from like the POV effect, to like people jumping from one part to the other. The stage in itself was really full as well. They really recreated well that warehouse look. The end performance dance with everyone was really cool as well. And so overall, for me, SF9 delivered a very, very intense performance, very mature, very sexy, as some members were not even wearing shirts, like just a blazer or just a shirt, but completely open. They were like, okay, we're sexy and you know it. The mature side of it was so freaking cool. Having them singing live, doing amazing choreo, having an amazing storyline. I am becoming a big, big fan of SF9. Then at number 2, we have Ateez with The Awakening of Summer and the performance of Rhythm Ta by iKON. And this performance is so freaking good. Ateez proved once more how freaking talented they are. I truly, really appreciated a whole lot the concept of it all and how unique it is. All the performances have their own uniqueness to them, but I relate a little bit more with Ateez's performance. I don't know why exactly, but I just do. They start out this performance with a bunch of art elements, like you have a violin, you have a vinyl, you have like all those art symbols, and you have like flyers saying "Heart is prohibited," and you hear in the background someone saying disease is human emotion. And then the third time that they say it, they only say disease is human, and it cuts. It really feels like they are criticizing a little bit the system, and that is something that I really appreciate with Ateez's performance. They always have, or most of the time they have, a social criticism underlying sort of meaning to their performances, and they're actually saying through that like saying disease is human emotion, but then when they stop, it really feels like the problem is not the emotions, it's the humans that complicate everything. And so then we go back to them, the Ateez members inside a van, and the fact that they were able to create such an immersive feeling that you really truly feel that you are inside of this van with the camera. It was really, really cool. As then they actually switch, there's something that happens and they are back with some masks on, black and white masks. It has this V for Vendetta movie, if you watched it, type of feel, type of concept of being against capitalism and against everything. It feels like they are like portraying a group, an underground group that is against society's norms. So they come out of the van and they start performing Rhythm Ta, and it was so freaking cool because the arrangement of the track was very unique to Ateez, because like we have the powerful vocals of Junho, we have San doing a falsetto at some point, and I'm like, holy shit. At some points the lighting is really bad, but that is on MNET's fault. Like there's a bunch of performances here that in which the lighting is just sucks, and I don't know why, because there's a scene in particular in which you see San just climbing up a rope, and because there's too much light, you can sort of tell that there is like a screen behind, and so it loses the effect that it wanted to create. I really love the arrangement. I really love John Ho's high notes. That guy is amazing, and it did another super intense high note, and I'm just like, holy shit, how does he do it? He's such a great vocalist, and he makes it seem so freaking easy because he's like dancing like the others. He's not just like standing on the side and doing those high notes. He's dancing still. He can reach those high notes so beautifully. All throughout the performance, the members are like creating chaos amidst all of like the papers with the dictatorship that is in place and how they are against it, and the way they do so with all the different transitions and the dancing skills is so freaking intense, and I freaking love it. And all the members pull it off so freaking well. It's not just one member or two that do it well, and I love it a whole lot. As they continue the performance and have their group dance sequence, which is so freaking intense, then we actually move on to Eunjun's speech. Yes, he does a speech against it all, how you have to rise up and go against the system and everything, and I find it to be so freaking cool. He has a really cool rap verse as well, and he adds this sort of Latin feel to it that I was not at all expecting, but that suited the arrangement of the track so freaking well. But going back to his speech, as he's doing it and really riling up the groups against the system and everything, we actually have Zeppelin going above it with the A of Ateez, but in a like V for Vendetta style, and I freaking love it. It's so freaking creative. And then we end up the end of the performance with the climax of Jungho's super high note and them dancing so freaking intensively. By the way, I love Wooyeon's hairstyle. He is stunning. The same goes for Songhwa's red hair and his fur coat. Oh my god, the styling. Love it. Also, at the very end of the performance, we have Eunjun that goes to this glass case and he breaks it to get the hourglass that is inside, and then he wears a black hat, and that made me think about the previous performance in which we actually have him sitting down with this famous hourglass, and we have someone with a black hat giving him a map. And so I thought that perhaps this performance was really the prequel of that one, of them fighting the system, getting the hourglass, and then going on that quest to find something, perhaps freedom or a better world or something like that. And that I find to be really interesting. Do you agree with my theory? Do you think it's something else completely different? You can tell me in the comments down below. At number 1, you guessed it, it is iKON with Inception, which is a song by Ateez. And at first I was wondering if perhaps they would get inspired by the movie Inception for their concept. And once I watched the performance, I was like, okay, they did it. I love it. I love the way they did it, because we've seen time and time again groups attempt to do those types of performances and get inspired or get the inspiration for them based on the movie, and it's a really hot thing to do. However, I think that iKON did pull it off so freaking well, and that is actually one of the bigger reasons why I decided to put them at number 1, because I did debate for the longest time whether or not I should put iKON at number 1 or Ateez, but then I just kept thinking about the concept and how they implemented it in the set, that I was just like, no, iKON actually deserves it. All of them deserve first place because the performance is all so freaking good. But I was just in love with the concept of iKON's performance. So they start out the performance with a member. It is actually a video of a member holding a clock, and they already start playing with the concept of time, and I was like, holy shit, I love it. So he starts singing, at some point he just does something like this, and he moves the set, and he's like, holy shit, it's so freaking good. Especially, it must be really hard to deal with the timing so that they do the movement and it does move. I don't know exactly how they did it, like the behind the scenes for that part in particular, but it was so freaking good. Then we switch up to another member. They sound so freaking good as well. They are actually singing live. And I noticed that for this round in particular, not only a lot of groups' performances were based on movies, but also they were all singing live, or some form of singing live, perhaps not relying as much on the backing track or the pre-recorded vocals. Perhaps if they had them, we could still hear their vocals speaking through, which I appreciate a whole lot. We then go back to that member, and he does it again. He's like, pop, and the set moves and like, holy shit, I love it. And they play a whole lot with that, and the transitions from one part to the other of the stage are really creative, and I just appreciated a whole lot how they were able to implement the concept of like Inception, the movie, and even the concept of time and everything into the set. Not only was it super creative, but it was also so freaking different from all the performances that we've seen just before, and the performances from like the other rounds, as well as from like Road to Kingdom. It's so freaking unique the way they implemented that concept. Also, they sounded so freaking good, and the arrangement of the track was really interesting because they truly made the song their own. Especially, I said the same thing for Ateez, and when you look at those two songs, or even the concepts of both groups, they are really different, even though at first you might think that it's not that big of a difference. Especially during the chorus, in which the group comes all together and they do the chorus together, and it definitely has that YG sound, and I really appreciate it a whole lot. After the first chorus, we move on to Bobby, who was actually missing from the rest of the performance, the very first part of the performance, and he starts rapping, and the way that he plays with like the backing track vocals and even with the set is so freaking fun to watch. It really feels like he's having so much fun performing the track, and sometimes he stops rapping and he goes back to it and he really plays with it all. Even the effect that they added to the camera while filming him is so freaking cool, because they added this distorted feeling to the camera, like a sort of filter to it, and then at some point they changed it and it went back to normal, but it was really well connected to the distorted feeling as well through the rap verse, and I just really love that. And especially as he ends that part, it just goes back and it jumps like he seems to be having so much fun doing the performance. Another dance break for the chorus, and you have like all the entire set becoming red, and you have like this sort of slow motion effect, and it's so freaking cool the way they did it. And the ending is the typical YG ending when they all come together. It's like the climax of the track, and they just seem to be having so much fun that I just had a blast watching this performance. All of them sound so freaking good. The transitions from one part to the other of the track was so well thought out. I love how creative the set was and the entire concept was overall, and they really impressed me a whole lot in the way they build this performance. Another thing, at the very end of the performance, we have like that totem that was in the Inception movie as well, and it is actually still spinning, which, if I remember it correctly, means that they are still dreaming. They were not able to break away from the dream, and I find it to be so freaking cool. It's such a nice way, interesting way to close off the performance. So yeah guys, those are overall all of my thoughts of episode 4 and 5 performances of Kingdom Legendary War. What did you think about it all? Which performances were your favorites? Can you leave your own ranking in the comments down below? I would gladly appreciate to read them all. Also, for episode 6, they only did like a game festival type of episode, which was really fun to watch. Go check it out, it's definitely worth your time. It's really fun to see the members of the different groups interact with one another and have like playful banter and just do those different challenges and everything. It's really fun. I had a blast, even though it's a very lengthy episode. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and stick around for more because I'm working really hard on more videos. So guys, thank you again for watching it all. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, and even click that little bell icon so you are notified whenever I post new videos. In the meantime, guys, take care, enjoy yourself, and I hope I'll see you in my next one. Bye!
Back to Let's go! Back door,